Hey, I'm Jam.
Oh, sorry. I'm Jason. I was just mesmerized by a cloud outside.
And welcome back to Podcast for Your Life.
Yeah, sorry about my silence. This cloud is incredible.
He was transfixed.
Yeah, welcome back. The podcast with such a 30,000-foot view on life that you'd think that it was recorded in the jet stream. That's my personal favorite, speaking of clouds. What are we talking about today, Jam?
We're going to talk about silence.
What does silence sound like?
It sounds a little bit like this.
Wow.
No, sorry. Jason is still going, actually.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt the silence.
Yeah, so it's something like that.
Yeah.
And that brief excerpt of silence you guys heard was also an excerpt from a popular song by John Cage called 433. Mm-hmm. So
incredible.
We kind of did a double whammy there.
Yeah. Do you think that he copyrighted silence because of his song?
That's a very good question. I don't know. I bet he did copyright the piece calling it that and, whatever. But the whole idea of that song, if you haven't heard of it, it's called 433. It had a weird rise in popularity. And once again, I guess like 8 years ago or something like that. It seemed like everybody was talking about it. It's basically a piece that has no sound to it. The person performing it just kind of fidgets around and, fiddles with their papers, adjusts their seat, continues to pretend to get ready. And then once 4 minutes and 30 seconds are up, you leave the stage. So it's kind of like a
avant-garde.
Yeah, avant-garde, but like, what's the thing people call it on YouTube now where they say like, oh, social experiment? You know how that's like,
sure,
that verbiage is used now by YouTubers. They're like, yeah, we're doing a social experiment where we throw eggs at people at the pier on the beach.
Silence can be kind of a social experiment, though, because if you think about it, like, how often do we have silence in our daily lives?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so the question is like, why don't we have more of it? Or do we like avoid it for reasons? Or, so many questions with silence.
Absolutely. How would you describe like what it is? Not just by telling, like by playing the silence we played for people. What would you define silence as?
Yeah. Well, there are so many definitions for silence that it's a little deafening. But just kidding. Silence is like the absence of noise. I mean, like pure silence is like zero noise at all. But what's interesting is that even like the absence of noise in our daily lives, there's always some sort of noise. And even I think like, I think you'd probably have to be deaf to not have noise, to be like in complete silence. However, don't deaf people have some little bit of like, maybe it's like the reverberations of like knocking on a table or like touching your head or something like that. They can feel that because sound is waves, right? And that bounce off things. Yeah. And that's how our brain hears them and then it processes them.
Yeah. And my understanding too is that it's not all the same for every person. So people who are hearing impaired in some capacity could have any range of like just they hear things really quietly or they don't have, any hearing. I think it's a range just like vision would be too. So that's my understanding. So
okay.
So there could be some people out there who do experience just pure silence, but I think it might be kind of rare. But there are those rooms that we hear about now where it destroys any echo, any like sound wave that's kind of bouncing around or whatever, just gets dissipated on the foam that they've lined the room with or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just a completely silent room.
It hurts. Like, I've been in one of those for like a recording studio. Well, not just a studio, but like the one where you go in and you're doing a voiceover. And it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like your brain's like, wait, what's going on? I'm used to having like sounds bounce off walls and nothing's happening here. So I think they do that in some solitary confinement.
Oh gosh.
As a means of punishment, I guess. So.
Yeah. Man, that's crazy. But I do think that just silence, not the purest form of like zero noise, but just meaning like no speech and no distractions, no like songs or TV or whatever. I think that is a rare thing at the moment in our lives. I think it's at least in the US, in our generation, or whatever, I would say that one would have to like consciously seek it out in order to find it, rather than just like it happening on accident. I think that might be kind of rare. We're used to like, oh, I'm gonna put this on in the background, or just, oh, it's other people talking, or whatever it is. It's yeah. I feel like we'd have to try pretty hard to get a regular amount of silence in our lives.
Yeah, like during car rides, I always find like myself fidgeting a little bit when I don't have my music playing or a podcast or something.
Yeah.
So even just like the road noise, car noise, sometimes I'm like, I feel like I'm missing something.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how we're so used to being, to having our ears or our audio auditory senses stimulated, that we're like, even if it's not silence, it's like road noise, that can be like too quiet for us. So it's pretty interesting. But I think nowadays it's good to have a break to like debrief from all of the auditory stimulation.
Yeah.
I don't even know if auditory stimulation is a thing, but I've been listening a lot to this really awesome podcast called Chemistry for Your Life, and they use words like intermolecular forces. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just nice to take a break every once in a while from all the noise and just kind of be in silence. It's interesting. It's almost a little like, even though we don't want it, or I don't want it, I feel like my body like kind of benefits from it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've had.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a huge mental aspect to it for me, where I feel like if there's silence and I'm either consciously or find myself accidentally in a silent situation, and I decide to like embrace it or whatever, I feel like you're kind of forced to reflect on where you're at in some capacity, which is a good thing. It can be kind of hard, but I feel like you're kind of left alone with your own thoughts, and it's like, okay, well, got to kind of sort through these in some way. And I feel like sometimes when I've been pretty stressed or whatever, if I would just think about that sooner and like, okay, why don't I go have some silent moments with myself and kind of sort through my thoughts?
Yeah.
It'd probably help a lot. But sometimes what I do instead seems to not help, which is like, oh, let me just put on some music, or let me put on a podcast. It's almost like, let me distract myself from my own thoughts.
Yeah.
From figuring out whatever it is I'm trying to chew on. It's like, that seems like kind of counterintuitive.
Sure.
But
so because silence seems to be like it's an interesting part of our lives, would you say that all silence is awkward? Just kidding.
I think people do feel awkward because of silence sometimes, and it feels like, oh, I gotta fill the space.
Awkward silence.
Yep.
Pregnant was the pause.
Pregnant was the pause. Speaking of pregnancy, wombs supposedly.
Now my hopes up, James.
Sorry,
I was like, that's a weird way
you
to
put that on the notes.
I know.
You put the notes. I was trying to lead into your next point.
Yeah, I was just kind of feigning excitement. Yeah, we found out recently when we had our kid that the womb is not quiet. It's like the level of sound that you would get from a vacuum cleaner.
Oh, interesting.
Which is fascinating. So all of mom's organs are making noise all the time. And so when babies come out, they like having white noise. So that's why a lot of white noise machines are really popular among parents. Because the babies are used to having kind of this ongoing bubbling, whooshing noise or whatever. So we use that with our kid, and he seems to benefit from it. So
I think there actually is something to that, even as not kids. Like I sleep with like a little fan on my nightstand that points at me, and then it's like, it makes a sound.
Yeah, double duty.
And it makes a big difference. But I also feel like not just for sleeping, but for like, concentration or just for enjoying some level of silence, I kind of feel like the quieter it is, it could be a little unsettling in not necessarily a good way.
Sure.
So I kind of feel like the white noise deal or like a fan or something like that can help you kind of ignore the silence in a good way. Like if everything you do also makes a sound, like just picking something up or every step you take.
Rolling in bed.
Yeah. You're kind of like overly conscious of each little sound, which can distract you from whatever you're doing. If you're trying to just like get some quiet moments alone, then I feel like having, white noise or a fan on probably is a good thing instead of just nothing at all. I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Okay, I have a question for you.
Yeah, what's up?
What's the longest you've ever gone without talking?
I don't know. Minutes?
Really?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I'd never I didn't have a memorable situation where I was like, oh yeah, I went to a whole day without talking. So did you?
Well, there's a few times I've realized like partway into the day that I haven't spoken at all yet.
Wow.
And then you kind of think like, wait a second, how long could I go?
What were you doing that you weren't speaking?
Well, here's one example. I remember realizing it was a slow day at work where Jason and I I used to work. And I have a longish commute and I woke up pretty early to do that. So it was like, I had no reason to speak until I got to the office. And this specific day, it was pretty slow. And I was like kind of in a different part of the office for most of the day. So I don't think I uttered even one word until potentially like noon.
That's crazy.
That's like a lot of time. And think about like how I was obviously sleeping.
What were you doing?
So just got to the office. Well, I got to the office and started working. Like I didn't know when to speak to yet.
Wow, that's
remember
awesome.
when my office was like in the very corner?
Yeah.
So
okay. It was back then.
So it wasn't like I was trying not to talk.
Yeah,
I remember
makes
realizing
sense.
like, wow, I haven't spoken today. It's just so strange.
Did you have that thought out loud? Like you spoke that thought out loud, or did you have it in your head?
Thought it in my head, and then I wondered how long could I go without speaking. But it was kind of cool. It was kind of cool thought, thinking like, I've been able to do so much. I've been able to do so much just thinking it on my own.
Wow.
Haven't had to speak anything. And there's a little bit of like it's kind of peaceful.
Well, congratulations, man. I'm proud of you.
So I want to challenge you to try to take one entire day,
dude,
and not speak.
My office or my cubicle is like the exact opposite. We work in this like, I don't know, bullpen. I call it the marketing hive because everyone's a busy bee over there. And it's like kind of this U-shaped area where everybody's kind of like backs to each other, but it's open concept. And so it's like, I don't think I would be able to get through the day without talking because somebody's going to ask me a question sooner or later. And, like you could just kind of sequester yourself in your office.
That's true. What if you did it on a non-work day?
I'm usually here at home. Dude, I'll try. Actually, no, I won't. I'll be honest, I don't want to try. Unless I was like in a like monastery and I was doing monastic rituals for some reason.
What's the word on silence?
So how do we silently wrap this up?
I think silence is good and interesting, and it's I just thought of a kind of cool definition.
Oh, cool. Say it.
Silence. It's the auditory space between everything.
Wow, I'm speechless. That was deep, Jim. That was deep. Well, yeah, I'm at a loss for words, so I guess we'll call it a day. Call it a day on this one.
Thank you so much for listening, and take a chance this week to be silent for some amount of time on purpose and see what happens.
Yeah, see what happens.
Could change your life.
It could.
Or maybe not, which would be fine too. It might be a good thing. Maybe your life is fine and you don't want to change it. That's great.
Silence is for you too.
Yeah.
A big thanks to Lauren in Texas for suggesting today's topic.
Thanks, Lauren. All right. Bye, guys.
Cheers.